All right, here we are in our third lecture about ethics of web scraping. It's going to be really short, but it's important for you to learn some of the best practices to avoid being blocked when you're web scraping. And so basically what we're going to talk about is why ethics are important in web scraping, and I'll also give you some of these best practices. So why are ethics important? Well, as I mentioned with the deep web, if you aren't careful, you might be doing something illegal by extracting information and perhaps publishing it as a spreadsheet. So you probably won't get in trouble in most cases, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And so even if you're doing legal forms of web scraping, you may get blocked and your scraper won't work. And this happens quite a bit. For example, if you're trying to scrape a website that has 100 pages, you might get through the first 10 pages before you get automatically blocked from scraping more. And the way you get blocked is that every time that you download a page, or your scraper downloads a page, your IP address specific to your computer is going to be logged. And if a system or a human sees that the same IP address is hitting the web page a lot of times, they are going to block that IP address from accessing the site. Because web scraping, because you're downloading a lot of pages very fast, can put a lot of strain on the resources of that web page. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But it can lead to problems with the website. And so many websites don't want people just visiting their page very, very fast. But there are steps that you can take to scrape legally and responsibly. But first, let's go back to what exactly is scraping doing. Remember, we're downloading a page and we're extracting data from that page. So when we visit, for example, eBay, you'll notice that it always has this HTTP for any URL, and that's the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which basically means we're going to be transferring hypertext from one entity to another. In our case, it's going to be from the human to the server of the organization that we are trying to access. So there is an actual transfer of information happening between your computer and the organization that owns the website, and that puts a little bit of strain on that organization. So when we go to ebay.com, we are asking for a hypertext transfer from eBay itself. And eBay owns a lot of servers that will give us that information when we go to the website. This is just basic structure of the internet, how websites are downloaded. So when we type in ebay.com, we're sending a request to eBay's servers. They are going to load the code of the site we want to go to, and then that HTML code will be translated to us in the front-end version. So each time we visit a page, we're requesting hypertext from a server. And remember, scraping is this automated process of downloading websites. And if we start using things like pagination, we might be visiting the same website many, many times very quickly. And so we're asking for a lot of information from that server. Because each download of a page is what's called a request. So if you think about the human on one side and the server on the other, the human is asking for information, the server receives the requests and sends information back to us in the form of a web page. And this is fine if we're just a casual user looking on eBay for our wrist brace. But if we are a scraper, we might ask for information a lot of times very fast, and this can create trouble for how the website operates. So websites have developed ways to stop this type of behavior. And one of the reasons is that perhaps you've heard of a DDoS or DDoS attack, which is a distributed denial of service. So think about organizations like Anonymous. They will work together as a group of hackers to try to bring down a website. So for example, if they're unsatisfied with something that a bank does, they will set up a lot of automated programs to go to that bank's website at one time and crash it. So organizations have certain defense mechanisms to stop these types of attacks, because if a banking system goes down, it creates a lot of problems for their clients, can tank the stock price, et cetera, et cetera. So whenever you have one of these sort of IT services go down, it could be because of a bug in their code when they update, but it can also be when a lot of automated programs enter the same website at the same time. They're asking for too much information, the servers can't cope, and it collapses. So the point is, web scraping can be mistaken for a hacking attack. And like I said, websites have these defense mechanisms in place so that you will be blocked from scraping. If you've ever had to fill in a CAPTCHA, this is something like, select the crosswalks and the buses and the motorcycles. That is a defense mechanism against scraping. That's why CAPTCHAs are there, because they're trying to stop a program from visiting their website hundreds or thousands or even millions of times if you have a lot of programs designed to request information from a website at the same time. So what a CAPTCHA does is it says, stop, we're going to first make you click these pictures so that we know you're a human and not a series of hundreds or thousands of requests. So that's not to say that if you scrape a website, an organization is going to think you're an anonymous hacker. No. But organizations that own websites have defense mechanisms just to stop having too many users, too many requests to their website, because it can crash it. And that's not good if you're trying to have a website so that people can access information or buy things. So whenever you automatically try to get information from a website, you might be interpreted as a hacker or just someone doing something sketchy, and there will be defense mechanisms to block you. So what can you do so that you don't get mistaken as a hacker? The first and easiest step is to give some time between requests. And you can actually do this on Dataminr. You can set, do you want to visit the website every 3 seconds, every 4 seconds, every 5 seconds? And just building in that little bit of time means that you'll scrape a website, wait 3 seconds, scrape the next page, wait 3 seconds, scrape the next page. And this basically lessens the load on the server, and you're less likely to get blocked if you just build in a couple seconds between each request. Now, the most ethical way and the smartest thing you can do is that if you really want to get some information and not get blocked, what you can do is you can contact the webmaster or page manager of that organization, the person who is in charge of keeping up the web page. Sometimes these are listed in the bottom of a website, or if you don't see who the webmaster is, you can just email the organization and say, hey, I have a request to scrape some information. Can I talk to the webmaster about this? And usually, a webmaster is usually someone in an IT department who knows what web scraping is, and probably most of the time is not going to have a problem with allowing you to scrape the web page unless it's something very, very sensitive. So what you can do is contact the webmaster and explain, let's say, you're a student and you want to work on a paper, you'd like to get the information of all the press releases of this company, or whatever your use case might be. And what the webmaster can do is they can put your IP address on a whitelist, which basically says, we're going to let this IP address visit our web page many times because we know what that person is doing. So it's very easy for a webmaster to say, we're going to allow this IP address to come in and make a lot of requests on our server. And that's essentially how you can do this in a way that you've received some type of okay from the organization, and you don't have to worry about your IP address being blocked. So a general good practice is first to build in time between your requests, but also if you really want to do something that you're going to try to publish later for a thesis project, or if you want to make sure that you're not getting into a gray zone or illegal area, it's a good idea to email a person, a webmaster ahead of time, and just say, hey, look, I'd like to scrape this information for your website. Can you whitelist my IP address So I do that. And maybe they have some follow-up questions, but usually it's not a problem, but it puts you in a very safe territory ethically and legally with the organization, that you've got an okay to scrape their information. So if you don't, you may get automatically blocked, or if a webmaster is looking over the traffic, they may see that this same IP address keeps showing up, and they may just put you on a blacklist where you won't be able to access that website from another IP address, from the same IP address. So what you could do is you could try to use a different computer, or you could use a VPN to try to reroute your requests from a different IP address. But with VPNs, most companies know what the IP address for those VPNs are. So that's not a guaranteed mechanism either. So your best bet is just to get an okay from the organization beforehand, before you try to go and scrape their website. So that's why websites like Books to Scrape are good, because they are designed to help you train with web scraping without triggering one of these defense mechanisms. So again, basically, it's a good idea to be upfront and ask for permission before you scrape, because if not, you may be mistaken as some type of hacker. And that's why we have CAPTCHAs and why there are rules around web scraping. And some websites like Reddit, for example, they openly allow for web scraping. So you can try to contact a webmaster for a website you're interested in and say, hey, is web scraping allowed on this site? If not, is there any way that I could get whitelisted? That's the ethical best practice. So you also need to consider the level of security of the data you want to scrape. Right? Does it require a password? Is it sensitive information? And how can I be sure that I scrape legal data? And again, stay on the surface web, but also use your judgment. I mean, there is information on the surface web that still can be sensitive. For example, if you are scraping information on a public forum, it may be the case that some users use their real name as their username, and then if you're publishing this data somewhere, it may be the case that there's information that they don't want released to the public that you've scraped. It could put them in danger in the context of a dictatorship or an authoritarian regime. It could be something about mental health. People discussing private medical matters in a public forum. I mean, they don't think about people scraping their data. So just use your judgment. Are you going into an area that may have sensitive data? My suggestion here is just to stick to large public organizations. There's not really going to be anything sensitive in Coca-Cola's media releases, or any sort of government organization is going to give a press release because they want the public to know that information. So generally, large organizations are going to have data that's not going to be sensitive, but really use your judgment. And again, stay away from anything that requires a login or a password. So if you can access data without logging in, it's in the public domain, it usually should be fine to scrape it. And basically, the logic is kind of like this. Information is public on the ClearNet or the surface web, and scraping just helps you collect this faster. But again, use your judgment, and the main question is, could this data somehow cause harm to someone? If the answer is even remotely, yes, this might cause harm, don't scrape it, be ethical. And when in doubt, if what you are doing would be allowed by the organization, contact the webmaster via email and discuss with them, share openly. You'd like to scrape something for this reason. Can you get whitelisted to do so? So those are the ethical questions and ins and outs. And really, regardless of whether you're so into ethics or not, you should practice ethical web scraping, because if you don't, you may get blocked, and you'll have built a scraper and gone through all the challenges with that just to get blocked at the end of the day. So build some time in between requests and contact the webmaster if you're unsure about whether your project is going to be non-ethical. But with those concerns aside, let's turn over to looking at Data Miner and get to scraping. See you then.